Remember being a teenager? Remember the high highs and the low lows, the simultaneous feeling of the world being full of possibilities and hopelessly against you all at the same time? Some of you don't have to remember. Some of you are living it right now. But regardless of where you stand, it's no mistake that the most important character in StarSwallower is one simple, lonely teen. Think about it. Teenagers have the most volatile emotions, after all. And in a story where those emotions affect the characters' very lives, a single teenager can be elevated to become the absolute arbiter of fate. So, who is this teenager? And what does she do with her power? Her name is Vixie, but the choices she makes are ultimately up to you. You see, StarSwallower is a game about stories. In the game, there are two stories we follow. The plot of the dramatic RPG journey undertaken by Neo and her friends, and then there's the meta-narrative of the girl writing the dramatic RPG journey undertaken by Neo and her friends. That girl is Vixie, and she's who we're going to be focusing on today. However, if you're interested in learning more about the story she's telling, don't worry. There's a video for that. Maybe go check that out first. But back to Vixie. It should be clear why, in a story about stories, the author of said story is the most important character. Without her, none of this would exist, right? Of course, but there's another layer to Vixie's importance in this narrative, and it comes from who Vixie is as a person. So let's start with getting to know her a little better so we can truly start to understand her place at the center of it all. Vixie is an average 15-year-old girl from a world just like ours, except, the people are furries. The furry thing is strictly an aesthetic choice, look at me, but it was also an intentional aesthetic choice. You see, the furry fandom is one of those fandoms that gets a bad rep for being full of cringy, sparkle dog teenagers. And since cringy, sparkle dog teenagers are the main inspiration behind StarSwallower, I figured I'd make a world to match. But I wanted there to be a strict difference between the fantastical world of Vixie's imagination and the reality she finds herself in. In the real world, there are no sparkle dogs, everyone is a normal animal, albeit anthropomorphized. Furries go to school, work jobs, get stuck in traffic, and everything else that happens in your day-to-day mundane life. There isn't even any animal-specific conceit or conflict like in other anthro settings like Beastars or Zootopia. The people are just animals, and there's nothing special about it. And it's almost the same in Furrys, the world from Vixie's story. The people there are just animals, but the difference is, everybody is special. Everybody has this destiny that guides them towards receiving powerful and unique magic that's completely unheard of in Vixie's world. And that's exactly the kind of thing Vixie is craving. Vixie is a girl who craves recognition, validation, and companionship. She longs to belong to something, to stand out, and to be heard. That's why, again, it's no mistake that she's an angsty emo teenager. Sure, emo teens are another one of those subcultures that gets a bad rep for being cringy, but that's exactly why I took inspiration from it. The emo subculture is about wearing your emotions on your sleeve, especially dark emotions of anguish and anger. And for someone like Vixie, that kind of self-expression is the exact catharsis she needs. Vixie is a boundlessly creative girl with an audience of one. She has no one to share her most intimate self with, and she has no one who sees her, who truly sees her. When people look at her, they see a cringy teenager. They don't see the breadth of complexity that makes her who she is. That's why the cringy teen veneer she's wrapped in is so important. So if Vixie is more than just this cringy, sparkle dog-loving emo kid, then who is she? If you take away the outer layers she's wrapped herself in like a security blanket, what's left? Well, that's the best and worst part. As a teen, your identity is malleable. You're discovering new things about the world daily, trying them on to see how they fit, incorporating them into your worldview. It's a simultaneously scary and exciting thing. And for Vixie, it's something that has her feeling hopelessly lost. Vixie feels all alone in the world. She feels rejected by her peers, glossed over by her parents, and her only sanctuary are things that get her labeled as cringe. This feeling of loss and helplessness translates directly to her identity and to the story she's writing. There's a reason why I, as the game dev, put you, the player, in control of Vixie's life. And it's because she feels like she has no control and is paralyzed into inaction. Every choice you make while playing Vixie's section of the game is supposed to feel like a reasonable possibility or reaction to the situation presented to you. But it's still a choice, and it's a choice Vixie is challenged when making. And she feels challenged with good reason. The trickle-down effects of those choices are what affects Vixie's life, and in turn, Vixie's life affects her story, which is probably the most important thing in the world to her at this point in time. Okay, so we've established that, yeah, Vixie's a cringy teenager, but she still has a rich inner life. Any good character has a rich inner life. How does this specifically make her the most important character in StarSwallower? If it's not just because she's the author, then what is it? Well, I might have lied to you earlier. Her importance is because she's the author. But her importance is because she is the author. Think about the story of StarSwallower. Think about what it's about. Neo eats the source of all magic in the world and then goes on a grand journey about it, right? Why did Vixie choose to write a story like that? Based on what we know about her, why does that appeal to her? Vixie is the most important character in StarSwallower because only Vixie could have written the story of StarSwallower. Vixie feels lonely and disconnected from the world, so she creates a rich world full of connection and destiny. Vixie feels paralyzed and lost while navigating the wide breadth of her day-to-day challenges, so she writes a story with a clear, singular goal for the characters that is life or death, and so they can never waver. And most importantly, Vixie feels incomplete, like she's missing something, like she hasn't reached her true potential. That is Vixie's greatest driving force, that she has this hole in her heart where community should be, and it's the one thing her story cannot fulfill. As long as Vixie feels incomplete, so must StarSwallower remain incomplete, because it is filling that hole inside her. That is why Vixie is the most important character in StarSwallower, because StarSwallower, in turn, is the most important thing to Vixie. Vixie is a unique character. I could have just made a fun adventure romp about Sparkle Dog furries and called it a day. I am cringe, but I am free. But I wanted to use this story to talk about that loneliness that I think we as creative types tend to feel. For me personally, when I was a kid, I didn't have friends, so characters from my favorite shows became the closest thing I had. This eventually led to me making my own stories with my own characters, tailor-made for me to escape to. And as I've made more characters and stories and created more and interacted with other people who create like I do, I realize how common of a thread my experience is. That's why I decided to tell the story of StarSwallower the way it is, through Vixie's eyes. Because Vixie is supposed to ring true to that lonely part of us authors who tell stories self-indulgently. We tell the stories we need to hear in order to survive. I hope learning more about Vixie and why she's the way she is has opened your eyes a little more about this silly little project. Now that I'm on the other side of being a teenager with all the clarity that comes with it, I hope that my story can be the escape others look to when they need it. Or at least they can feel a little more seen when Vixie stares back at them with their own eyes. What about you? Why do you tell stories? Why do you create? Have you had an experience like mine or Vixie's? Tell me all about it in the comments below. I can't wait to read them. And thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me talk all the way to the end. I leave you with the completed art from today's speed paint. Bye!